Would you date the Vampire Lestat? Now, the younger me would have said, hell yeah. He checks off all of my boxes, honey. He is eternally youthful. He has flair and style. He's charming. He's rich and he loves music. What is there not to like? However, when you peel back the layers of the Vampire Lestat, you see him for what he truly is. He is a blood-sucking, bloodthirsty vampire, honey. Of course, he is a fictional character conjured up by the amazing mind of Anne Rice. However, we all love him because he represents some of the real energy vampires that we have or have not had in our lives. He represents the narcissist, and he seeks to drain our blood and work to steal our light and our souls. So in this video, we're going to do a deep dive to understand the real meaning of narcissism and why narcissistic relationships are always destined to fail. So you guys stay tuned for that. Now, I read Anne Rice's book, The Vampire Lestat, and I have to say that Sam Reed is mesmerizing. He does a really great job of bringing the Vampire Lestat character to life, and I like his performance better than Tom Cruise, but that is a topic for a different video. And I also have to admit, when I read The Vampire Lestat, I was younger. And man, I couldn't understand why Louis wanted to kill him or why Louis didn't want to be with him. And then as I got older and wiser and a bit more jaded, I began to understand their relationship. You see, Lestat didn't really love Louis. I know that's a hard concept for us to understand, but Lestat loved the idea of being in love. Yes, he appeared to dote on Louis and fawn on him, but Lestat was being Lestat. He loves to hunt. He is enthralled with the art of seduction, and he loves to ensnarl people into his little traps. That was the very thing that turned Lestat on about Louis in the first place. He loved that Louis was this powerful pimp in Storyville, and he loved the fact that Louis was able to pull out a knife and threaten to slash his zealot brother on those New Orleans streets. Lestat believed that Louis was just as calculated and vicious as he was. After all, Louis was a man who lured in innocent women, turning them out into prostitutes, all for clout, money, and profit. Only Lestat believed that Louis enjoyed pimping out women for profit, in much the same way that Lestat enjoyed draining the blood and light out of his victims. But Louis, underneath the surface, was brimming with self-hatred and shame. And Louis tried to assuage his guilt by telling himself that his questionable business practices were to save his family. Yet, Louis felt a sense of power and allure of being a pimp out there on those streets, honey. Yes, my friends, power is one hell of a drug. And Lestat, being a predator, knew how to get Louis wrapped around his little finger. He had to show him how powerful he was. He had to throw around some money. He had to speak to him telepathically. He had to make him feel like he could confide in him. Now, Louis, just having lost his father, and of course tired of being ridiculed and shamed by his zealot brother, opened up to Lestat. And Lestat filled this void that was inside of Louis. He took away his shame and gave Louis a sense of intimacy that he had never experienced before. Now, Louis, during the seduction phase, couldn't even see or understand that Lestat was grooming him to be his companion, or, in Louis's eyes, his lifetime slave. And this, my friends, is how the energy vampire / narcissist works. Lestat is fattening up Louis, seasoning him just right, cooking him slowly, all while salivating and waiting to dig in. In fact, it was Lestat himself who said that restraint was his biggest strength and one of the best tools that he had in his seduction arsenal. And Lestat, in his own mind, believed that he was in love. Only Lestat had one serious problem. He was a vampire. He was a devil that walked about at night and was blocked off from light and love. This is why he needed to feed and drain the life force out of others. He did it slowly and methodically, simmering the taste and the experience, seeping up the joy and the light that he got from others that he no longer had access to himself. Now, Lestat victims were lucky enough to die and be put out of their misery. Yet Louis, on the other hand, was not so lucky. Once he became Lestat's partner, he would be drained of all of his light. He would lose his family, his business, and even his self-respect. What little he had to begin with. As the years progressed, the relationship fizzled, only because the art of seduction is all about the illusion. When reality sets in, Lestat begins to realize that Louis is not a predator. In fact, he's a gentle creature, a fledgling vampire who's adverse to killing. Louis begins to loathe Lestat's hunting rituals, calling them extravagant and, quite honestly, cruel. Lestat had lost all of his humanity, and he gained a sick pleasure in making people suffer before he killed them. This was a major turn-off to Louis because he never truly enjoyed hurting people. Disappointment sets in, and both Louis and Lestat realize that they misjudged each other. Lestat was content with abusing his power, using none of it to actually help people, while Louis wanted to evolve, to not be a slave to the blood, to master his instincts and have a mutual respect for humanity. The relationship soon devolves where Louis wants Lestat to be more humane, while Lestat wants Louis to embrace his predator nature and be a savage. The only problem is that Louis understands the consequences of his action, and he feels remorse when he does bad things to others. Lestat, on the other hand, he doesn't. So then you have it, two vampires who are polar opposites with nothing to ground them, except for blood, of course. Well, that's until Claudia enters the picture, yet she is a topic that will be discussed in a later video. So what's the moral of the story? The moral of this story is that we fall in love with illusions of who we think people are. Then when the real them materializes, we're disappointed. In most cases, we see the red flags, yet we are swept up by the tidal waves of falling in love that we fail to consider them. The solution? Well, we shouldn't make important life decisions in haste. And two, we have to know as much about ourselves as possible before embarking on long-term relationships. This way, we won't be blinded by illusions, cut off from the light, and forced to suffer in the darkness.